So we are live, episode number 11 of Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. We get to the latter half of week 2 of my second month of playing game time wise, with this starting on the first day of the first week of June 2020. The company I run is called Launch Pro Wrestling. This is using the Gary Wooder Killing the Business mod, which I highly recommend if you want to play modern day pro wrestling with an up-to-date roster. What you see here will be slightly behind what real life has now, because at some point you gotta freeze it when you start the game. But for those who haven't started it yet, the mod, as I understand it, has been updated quite frequently and will continue to be so. So anyway, I recommend it, and that's why I mention it. That's what I'm using here. The only exception, though, try to keep as much the same as possible. But there are, as I'll pull up this from my last show, two important things that add. One was a women's company, an all-women's developmental company called Sharp. Cutting-edge women's wrestling for everyone. And then my company, which is owned by AEW in the game, but that I run, is called Launch Pro Wrestling, as in, career launch, upward trajectory, that sort of thing. That's the idea behind it. And while the last show was not up to what I had hoped for, particularly the main event, it was a valuable lesson to learn, because Kenny Doane came in with like a 20 or 21 popularity, maybe 23, still very low, and ended up playing a role in the quality of the main event. There were other factors, though. We'll get to that. That includes Dax Harwood. And how about in real life, FTR making their debut on Wednesday night on AEW Dynamite. I was very happy to see that. But in this game, I've got him here in my child promotion, because this is the first time ever in 2020. You can never do this in this game before. You can play as a child company to an AI or computer-controlled parent company. And because AEW right now doesn't have any sort of direct feeder system, I thought, well, I'm going to add something to this existing real-life world that Gary's meticulously put together and very, very well done. I said, well, let's do it where I'm not going to, because I tried at first to switch companies around, and it was a mess. So I've just kept it as clear as possible. So Launch is a company that AEW owns, and they pay the bill every month. They assigned me a CEO in the form of Dave Prazak. And so, because Prazak's there, I've been using him as an interviewer as well, since he's my CEO. If he's going to be there anyway, then let's do that. And you may be thinking to yourself, what in the world? Chris Hero is a world champion. Sure, I see that. But Connor, who he's going to face in the main event tonight, of the Ascension, with Alicia Fox as his manager, does not sound like it would be necessarily a combination that would work out, but Alicia Fox, who was sent down as a developmental talent from AEW, has been phenomenal as a manager, to the point that it didn't take very long for AEW, the computer-controlled, the AI-controlled parent company, to let me know, yeah, we were going to want to call up Alicia Fox in 4 weeks, or whatever it was. So, I think Alicia Fox has this show and then one more, and then she'll be gone. So while I've got her, makes sense to utilize Connor, who I've had unbeaten, and up to a 46 now in popularity. Here's Connor. Now, it's not like his matches have been a bunch of 5-star classics. All right, to be fair, there are limitations, but he beat Big Cass, who at the time was unbeaten, so that was a battle of unbeatens as well, to become the #1 contender. And that's going to be on this show. Okay, there's the specific information. So if you ever don't know exactly how much time you got left with a given talent, just come to this your office is the button. Above it's the 4 squares, which is kind of like your main headquarters. A major issue I'm running into now is with Impact. I've got several between wrestlers and especially my road agents, the producers, Gail Kim in particular. I've not been able to use them on Tuesday nights because Impact has been running Tuesday nights. But it's weird because sometimes they use everyone and then sometimes they don't. I think I had one date on Laredo Kid, but he was working Impact. So, that's maybe a while to finally get that date. But then that next week, I guess Impact wasn't using him. And this is a positive where the King recognizes, okay, if the company, the top choice, doesn't use a given person, that gives the next in line, which would be me, an opportunity to book them. Whereas before, you just kind of had to just deal with not being able to use them, and then maybe the computer booked them, maybe they didn't. And that was kind of inconvenient. So this is better, at least in my opinion. But I'm still not happy about having to have a lot of talent that's tied up on the whims of Impact. But at the moment, that's what I have to deal with. The nice thing though is being in as a developmental brand. We'll get to this as well. FTR, my tag champs. Let's bring up the box here. But it was the main event, FTR beating Goddard and Doan, who I gave a good build to as far as the match went. But in that match, Harwood had sustained a blown eardrum. I was like, oh no. But I guess I have to leave this screen to pull up. Dax. He's injured. Blown eardrum. But, and again, if you want injury information, you have to look at her skills. It's rather counterintuitive for it to be there, but just remember that, and it's not that tough. Can still perform. Now, for the time being, I'm going to hold off on using him, just like I'm holding off right now on using Brody King. Not just because Brody King cost me $1,800 a show. Most expensive as far as that goes. But it's the 56 in the Southeast, which is higher than anybody I have, because my guys seem to, it's like the ceiling for as far as, the level of popularity they can reach is 55. But because Brody King has worked elsewhere, would come in with a 56 if and when he returns. I imagine he'll return, but I don't know, with a dislocated ankle, just because he can work through it doesn't mean that I'm going to ask him to. Oh, and there's the injury. A week to fully heal, they're saying, which is for a blown eardrum. Although it's going to work through it anyway, so I might be able to use them. I'm not planning to for next week's show. Even though that makes me think he might be fully cleared by then, but I've still got another plan in place. Because with last night, or it was actually the night before, but as far as winning the game, the previous card where FTR retained had Primo and Epico got a win over Danhausen. Danhausen's on his final night in the company because he's about to get called up to the main roster. And that's going to be coming up, this is Wednesday, week 2 of July. My next show is going to be Tuesday, week 3. So I think it's going to be 6 days from right now. But I found this works well because I can go through between episodes of Lou Plays Lou Plays Total Extreme Wrestling and figure out who I might be well served to pick up, etc. So that was the last show. Had Leo Rush and Cain Velasquez go to a very good 10-minute draw, and then Drew Gulak, who had been out, returned and jumped Cain Velasquez. But if Leo Rush did not do anything to help out Cain. Speaking of Leo Rush, there are a couple of guys I'm looking at as possible one-offs. Now, in reality, I shouldn't be able to bring in Austin Theory because he's within that insane system within WWE NXT. And once you're there, you're supposedly an independent contractor, but that's not the reality of it. You're an independent contractor under an exclusive contract. That's in real life. Now, in this game, Theory's in there as I can potentially book. Now, he won't necessarily stay yes, but I already looked it up and checked to see. He didn't give me the little red line saying, like, this person is not interested in negotiating with you. Didn't get that. So we'll see. Connor up to a 46. Heroes a 55. Defends the world title. Hero won the title on the first show, beating Heath Slater, although Slater's now out for a year, which is too bad because they had a great match. But, I mean, now, yeah, for now, I think Slater's out 8 months or so, because they had him have surgery. It's like kind of like a roll of the dice. Like, potentially the surgery could go wrong, but in this case, the surgery went okay. I guess we're fine. Anyway, point is that Hero's been booked very strong. He's my world champion. Connor, a viable challenger the way it is now. So now I'm going to have Gulak and Cain Velasquez continue their feud in a tag match to be determined on who I'm going to put in there. Leo Rush, I mentioned Austin Theory being a possibility. Like I would, ideally some of these Impact wrestlers, Petey Williams or Sabin, or especially TJP. Now, I don't know for sure, though, they're all going to be unavailable. But unlikely to be available, but that I don't know for sure. I mean, I explained before the Laredo Kid thing. And I've been able to book TJP before, so I'm not quite sure what to expect with that, but we'll see. I'm going forward as if I won't have any of them. If I am able to, great, then I'll shuffle the card around. But anyway, Primo and Epico lining up to get the next shot at the Tag Team Championship. They never had a match against FTR in this game. And with Dax Harwood out with that eardrum injury, and he may be back okay, this is a week. So a week would actually be one day after the Tuesday, week 3 television of next week. Point being, he's not working the show either way. I'm going to have Cash Wheeler and Fred Yehai. So Yehai can drop the fall. Probably Primo getting the win. So Wheeler doesn't drop the fall, but the Colognes look strong for beating one half of the tag champs, and the guy's been very strong for me, in part because I've just used him a lot and thought he would do well, and he has, with Fred Yehai. And there's continuity to that because you go back to FTR and 6-man tag action, and that was really the one loss FTR had, but in that case it was also Yehai dropping the fall. But in the case of somebody in Yehai, in that semi-main, they still had a 60 rating, which I think had more to do with FTR than anything. Don't get me wrong, but anyway, it makes sense. That's a little bit of thought into it can go a long way. Looking ahead to the following show, I mentioned ACH returns, PB Smooth, and I made this thing with him tonight because he's been out injured. He was one of the wrestlers sent down from AEW, my parent company, to have in a developmental role, but then he got injured on his very first show with me, but now he's back as of next week. I think I'll be able to use him for an angle, or at least a video or whatever. And so, because he got injured against Shannon Moore, granted it was a pre-show match, but I'm going to still be able to utilize that within the course of explaining what happened and why it would mean something. And I'll probably have PB Smooth beat Shannon Moore on the next show. And that's in part, though, because Shannon Moore has kind of struggled for me as far as the match quality is gone. That's the way this game is. Zenshi, on the last show, beat Bestia 666. So I'd like to build on it when somebody wins, and on the previous show, on the prior show, unless there's a good reason otherwise, try and go from there. Or you see the numbers here, that's just for me to keep track of how they were from a popularity standpoint at a glance. Casanova, he's starting to look like he might be a potential breakout for the long term for me as far as developing a talent that's not well established already on the national or international stage. It's one thing for me to be able to sign up the wrestlers WWE released in real life during the pandemic, but in this case, this is something where, as a developmental territory, ideally I'll be able to keep producing this kind of talent. But, and this is a major thing that I don't know the answer to, I don't know if, when or if, AEW, the parent company, would be wanting to bring in talent from Launch, the child company of theirs that I run. Because ideally you'd bring up Connor to go with Alicia Fox because they've really clicked as a unit. But there's been zero indication that's even a thought. Which, hey, it's an AI-controlled parent company, so they can do what they want. But I don't know if that's critical thought by them as far as the game is concerned, or if that's just the game won't call up people that you, as a child company, sign. It's with their money, though, but that you sign that they didn't send to you. But I found that there is depth and unpredictability to this game well beyond even 2016 in a lot of ways. And that's a good thing. It makes it feel more realistic. Oh, hey, how's it going? The Millionaire music, so I just have music on in the background. So I have to think about it. I got on a loop for hours and hours if I want to. Is it too loud? It's almost a rib at this point. I think I've got it turned down way too low, and then it's like, no, it's still too loud. So I'm hoping now it's not the case. But I can play a bunch of different music in the background. Well, yeah, I know it's random. It is. But I like it because it adds a little attention to it. But on top of that, I don't have to worry about there's any lyrics. There's not... If I get pinched for this music being on here, so be it. But it's one bit of music. If I played a bunch of different songs, that's a whole lot more as far as risk goes. And I tend to be risk averse when it comes to things that I do in general, but particularly in here. Anyway, I've been doing this since the beginning as far as this goes, and it's kind of been my thing that I've stuck with. I might change it at some point. It's not like I'm locked into it. Very random, I'll give you that. Alright, so with Harwood out for the next show. Let's see. It'll be Wheeler, one half of the tag champs with Fred Yehai. And they've had teamings before as a six-man tag unit, so it makes sense. But I'm going to have Primo and Epico challenging as well, charging toward FTR to get the next shot at the tag team championship. I've not had them had a match yet, but hopefully we'll get there in a way the fans will accept. Right. And I also noted it's frustrating that I've got this talent that's working with Impact, and Impact is now running every Tuesday, which is when I run. So, for the most part, they've been unavailable except for when they're not, when sometimes they just randomly are. And I'm not sure if that's just the game allowing me to be more realistic, where if Impact's not booking you, then you come work for me as a second choice, or what it is exactly. So Zenshi, who I signed recently, on the last show he beat Bestia, so I've got to find somebody for Zenshi, and I'll probably have Zenshi get the win. I think first things first. So obviously a bunch of names there, but in particular, but I tried to, before I go live with these things, is put a thought into it. And there's a bunch of names there that are Southeast based, which is where my company is. And the only reason that particularly matters is because when they're the Southeast, generally speaking, they don't ask me to pay for their transport. And there's the popularity within the Southeast for the guys that I have handshake deals with, because I'm not allowed to sign actual contracts as the child company. Although I do have wrestlers under exclusive contracts sent to me for training, but that's directly through the parent company, controlled by the AI with the computer, which is a good thing because it's a whole new twist on it. So okay, let's see. We'll see if he actually would be willing to go for it, because there's nothing there to say he won't. And while he's under a written deal, in the 2020 version of this game, being under a written deal doesn't mean anything as far as taking outside bookings unless it's an exclusive written deal. That's where the distinction lies, whereas that's in 2016, somebody under a written contract, forget it. But I'm not sure, well, it's just gone from WWE, but that's misleading because it was like he was loaned to the parent company for one show. The parent company being WWE. So let's see. There's not necessarily a specific reason to have someone under a specific number of appearances versus an ongoing handshake deal, since there's not any sort of downside guarantee that you have to offer, which is a nice thing compared with the 2016 and earlier, where it was like that was part of it. But the ongoing in particular, even had unlimited appearances, that's fine. But it used to be had to like always have a set, a sunset date where it would end. But this makes more sense because you've got, like with broadcasting gigs I've had, it's game by game or match by match, whatever you're calling thing, versus I'm gonna get a $200 downside guarantee if I'm sitting at home because I've got laryngitis or something. So again, I could do it where it's unlimited, but particularly because it's somebody from the WWE system, I'm more inclined to just go with one. And we'll see what he says. I'll probably want more merch money. We'll bicker over that, or maybe not. I knew it. That's fine. So we'll try 1150. Sometimes this gets a bit tricky. They get very adamant with their merch, even for a one-off appearance. You just better not ask for creative control when we have an issue. Oh, hey, Razor. I think it is. I think this game is worth buying even if you have 2016. Now, you have to go into this knowing there will be a learning curve to it. There are things in different places, things have been renamed, but overall, it's a game that, at least to me, has more depth. There are a lot of things I like about it better than 2016, and there are certain things I'll gripe about, and that's just how it's going to be. But as far as like some of the interface stuff, kind of irks me at times. But overall, it's I've really enjoyed having the wider rectangle versus previous versions, because you can get a lot of information on the screen. Now, with that said, it can also be a lot of data to process. But like, if you look at your roster, that's 2016 looks pretty similar. It's a little bit different as far as these skills and popularity without having to toggle, which I like. Yeah, well, they've there's certain little things like being able to play as a child company with a AI-controlled parent company, like I'm doing. But there are more elements as far as within like match descriptions, or not descriptions, but notes for your road agent. There's a bit more with that. But to me, it just feels more realistic in having to deal with various people. The personalities, he's balanced in neutrals, ACH, according to this. So that's something that's new, because, and this is a good thing, because just like in real life, somebody that has one type of personality might fly off the handle, another person might just no-sell it, okay. And then a third in between, who knows. But it feels realistic. There is a certain unpredictability, but it doesn't feel like just luck and randomness. That's probably part of it though, but it doesn't feel that way, at least it hasn't to me. So, to me, it's worth it. Anyway. Okay. He was saying no because he wanted more of the merch cut. So I'm playing as a child company to AEW, but AEW, and I'll show you what happens when I try this here. If I try to go above 10% for a merch offer, blocked. Gotta be 10. But that's not unrealistic. I mean, if you have a child company and you're AEW paying the bills for it, you're going to have certain things you want. And luckily, because my vision of what I like in pro wrestling matches in many ways to what real life AEW has, it has worked out pretty decently. So I'll offer them $1,200 as a one-off. Make sure I put the one-off in there. And again, it's kind of weird because Theory's under contract with WWE. In real life, that wouldn't be. But in this case, it's let me so. And really, I just need him to come in and do the honors as a one-off. Put over Leo Rush in one of the sprint matches. That's my secondary title, the Sprint Championship. One fall, 10-minute. which is like the Lightning matches in CMLL, which are the same time and length. Only this is for a championship. But the caveat is you have to defend it every week on television if you're the champion. If you have another booking or you're injured or sick, whatever, the title's vacated, then you fill it and go from there. Yeah, to me, I hadn't really ever thought about playing as a child's company with an AI-controlled parent. Had never gone that route. But I never really thought about it if it was or wasn't possible. And I remember, this is going back several months, when I first heard about it, and I saw people were so excited about this possibility, I thought, maybe there's something to this. And so far, I've really enjoyed it. It's a whole different bunch of challenges, and I think if you had a parent company that had a very different vision for what you personally would want to do with the developmental territory, you'd be in a bit of a bind. Oh yeah, it's definitely... Now, I started at 0 as far as popularity went, and then you get finished up with Austin Theory, and I can show you. I'm barely on the radar at all now. It's a slow climb, at least from what I've found. All right, we'll go 1225. The one appearance, that's a one-off, okay. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. Typically you make it to this point and you're going to get the offer approved. Not always, though. And this is like a type of little quirks and differences. I had signed Rob Van Dam to come in as a one-off, and he agreed. Like, we seemed to reach terms, and the next day he had a change of heart. So I had to kind of scramble to find. I ended up with Brody King in my roster. I have to bring in somebody. I tried to bring in Jeff Cobb, but my CEO, who the computer signed as Dave Prazak in the game, came in and said, okay, you can't offer me any more money than that. And Jeff Cobb wasn't going to come in for that, so he found somebody else. Well, yeah, that's a good question as far as what happens if your company gets super popular. I don't know as far as the parent company, because that's a different thing. As a child company, I think there are inherent limits. I would imagine you'd be able to do at least to the level what NXT has done with, with a developmental system with WWE. So I don't know about breaking off, because I'm owned by this company, Launch, which I came up with. But ultimately, the game, it's AEW that pays the bills and owns the place. I could not imagine them spinning me off. Maybe so. I mean, I don't want to underestimate the depth on this game. They've surprised me a few times with a certain level of nuance and detail that I was not expecting, especially having played the series going back to 2013 and beyond. So, all right, so Austin Theory should be coming in. I'll leave with the question marks around him, but that's where he'll go. That'd be a 51 popularity. That'd be great. Leo Rush has been my only champion as far as the sprint championship goes to this point. 8 or 9 minute matches. He had a time limit draw against Cain Velasquez in the last show, but very good. His match has been quite good. So Austin Theory coming in here. Well, yeah, as far as superstars getting called up, it's, again, I'm very new into this as far as overall. I mean, this is week 2, July, and I started week 1 of June. And let's see. Oh, up to a 2. Oh, wow. Okay, this is finally picking up a little momentum. Okay, I started at a 0, and that was not any fun. But then got to a 1. That was like the first of the month. Okay, maybe like month by month I'll go. It's going to take a long time to climb. But now I'm up to a 2. And I'm only... In other words, momentum's finally starting to kick in, which is a good thing. But as far as getting called up, though, it's only involved thus far wrestlers or managers that have been sent to me for seasoning, essentially. Let's see, the DEV for developmental. And this is one nice thing, trying to turn a negative into a positive, because I can't use game capture with this game. It won't play nice with OBS Studio, at least from everything I've tried. So the window capture and turn a negative to a positive, that my notepad that I have on my... I keep very copious notes. And but I can pull that up so people can see what I'm talking about versus me trying to either making an overlay and it can see too much or whatever. Anyway, it's something that it works at least. But I was noting the DEV developmental. I had Donovan Danhausen. He was sent to me, and he had one match with me, and I guess made a positive impression with the brass in Jacksonville, because immediately I got a note in my email, and I can show you this. As far as the callback up goes, yeah. So see, Donovan Danhausen call-up warning. Gave me a 1 month notice. So this is not like Ohio Valley Wrestling with WWE 15 years ago, when it would drive Jim Cornette or whoever was in charge at the time crazy, because they'd have these, because they're trying to draw an audience locally and make some money, keep the doors open. And even as developmental, this is pre-NXT. But then it would be like, John Laurinaitis would call up with the bad news saying that they want to see what so-and-so looks like with a shaved head. And not like, you can give 3 weeks to build to a hair versus hair match, but no, like that day we want to see it. And so it caused all sorts of problems. So this is a lot different to that end. Yeah, the notice is great. And like for Alicia Fox, she's worked a couple of shows for me before getting that. And because I'm a strictly all men's wrestling promotion, the idea being that there are 2 child promotions for AEW, one that I run, that's strictly men's, and one that the AI runs, that's women's. That way the women in developmental get experience working at all points of the card. I think it's a major flaw in most developmental right now. And I love a great women's wrestling match. But I think that it doesn't do the women any good to put them in situations where they don't get many chances to work, especially towards the top of the card. How can you gain confidence in that before, if you haven't been through that before, you haven't had those opportunities? So that's the thought, at least. So yeah, they give you, at least here, now maybe other companies are less scrupulous. I don't know. And again, I don't know just how much subtlety or detail to that level you'll get in this game, but because I'm still learning, it's like this is part of the fun has been discovering new and unexpected things that I didn't think the game would take into account, that definitely didn't seem to happen in the past, at least from what I recall, what I've experienced playing 2016 relatively recently. So the notice is a good thing, definitely. All right. So it's going to be Hero versus Connor, my main event, Battle of the Undefeateds. And with Alicia Fox as Connor's manager, they really clicked, which is strange. Connor the Ascension, who I was just trying to get that Ascension stink off him, so he's his own guy. With Alicia Fox as a manager, which sounds like that's just way too many variables, but because it's pro wrestling, sometimes things work out. And they clicked as a unit. But I don't think Connor's going up to the AEW main roster of the game. And I think that's because I signed him, as opposed to AEW's parent company signing him and sitting him down to me. So we've got our 2 of our top 3 matches. I have an ongoing feud with Gulak and Cain Velasquez. They had a singles match 2 shows ago. Make sure I scrolled up properly. Where's the August part here? I'll have to put that later. So, let's see. I feel like I'm overlooking something here. Here we go. Okay, it was the semi-main on the 3rd show I had. It was a ref stoppage finish, but that wasn't like the blow-off to the feud. That was just like heating it up. Personal goal. Well, it's tough for me right now. I guess my goal is to get as popular as possible, while not getting in, too much heat with the demands of the people paying the bills, as it were. So right now it's size getting from 0 to 2. See how big I can get it. I don't know. I want to be able to learn what the limits are, if there are any, for a child's company like this. Besides that, just putting on cards that I would personally find entertaining, because fortunately I was able to craft my company to be a lot, along those same lines as far as what I like. But it just happens that AEW is very similar to that in real life, so that helps. Not everything though. Not everything's the same. Like, I don't have a babyface heel divide. I think that's ridiculous. It works for AEW, great, but I'm more like how the Japanese style, where it's almost like Red Dead Redemption 2, where you start with your good versus evil meter in the middle, and kind of, the sliding scale. if that makes any sense. So that's what I'm thinking as far as the company goes, is just seeing what it will and won't let me do, because that sort of thing interests me. All right. That was the last show, or FTR. It's funny because in real life, FTR just showed up on Dynamite, the former Revival, but in this game, I signed them as the child company. So, as long as they'll stick with me, I'm fine with it. And if they get called up, that's fine too, especially if they'll give me a month notice. That would be nice. But so far, the only 2 call-ups that have been people that were sent to me to begin with as developmental. And it's going to be such a hassle, these people that work for Impact, because Impact, I'm very small at this point, Impact is larger, and they also are running Tuesdays, and that's caused me some unfortunate surprises day of the show. That's been a live and learn. So now it's like I've got them as extras. If I need them, that's fine. If not, I'm not going to count on being there until I gain some confidence in that. TJP in particular, I got to get him back. There's a great feud, at least in my opinion. It's the beginning, the building blocks are there between TJ Perkins and ACH. ACH was injured. He had like a partial bicep tear. It freaked me out. I was like, oh no, he's going to be out forever. But it was just partial, so like 3 weeks, and then he's back on the following show. So, now as far as where it says, pop for popularity, Southeast, because that's where my developmental company is based. I live in the greater Nashville, Tennessee area, so I mean, it was too perfect to not be like that. And in real life, Nashville to Atlanta is about a 4-hour drive, depending on traffic, of course. So it's not unreasonable. That's kind of the main point. So that's for the last show I'll have for July of 2020. Now, one thing I really do like with this is how very easily I can go to somebody, okay, match history, boom, boom, boom. You can do that before, but maybe, whatever reason, I like the interface with 2020 better with that. So at this point, if I still had Slater around, I would love to have him Gulak team back up, but Slater's been out injured for a while. Sabin, I can't trust he'll be there because he's under contract with Impact. Amazing Red has been a very big disappointment for me. He's not been a very good, I'd signed him as like a wrestler, but more as like a road agent. But his road agent, he's been bad. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Especially by the standards that others have set. I mean, I've got the Rock and Roll Express that I signed, in part because they can work with some younger guys on the pre-show, whatever, but also so they can work as de facto road agents. I mean, they're not technically classified as stuff, but as such. But it seems like every time Ricky Morton's the agent, there's a note at the in the dirt sheet saying that the agent Singh, the producer, as WWE would say, of the match, Ricky Morton did a great job or helped boost it or whatever. So I'm kind of open-ended as far as with Gulak. He had a good match, better than expected with his max stardom here. And it was like the third match on the card, and it dinged me for being done too hot of a crowd. Like, Gulak's my top guy. So I'm going to put him like in the second match, not the third, just because of arbitrary crowd heat. Although at this point, my cards are drawing so few people, which they have been, because I had zero recognition or anything. But now I'm getting that momentum going, and it went from no one watching the first 3 weeks, it seemed like on YouTube, to now like the 30,000, then the 60,000. So hopefully that'll help expedite the whole popularity thing increasing, because that's the idea. Because it's a semi-main, I'd like to have some decent talent in there. I could have it be Gulak and Stardom again, but I mean, Gulak already beat him, so there's not really much of a point. Stardom, I wouldn't have him beating Gulak on this next show anyway, especially not in the main event slot. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So I've got some choices here as far as that goes. And it's too bad, like, I don't know, like with TJP, I can't trust any of the guys that are, or girls too, with Gail Kim, one of my very best road agents. I can't count on them being there because of Impact running Tuesdays head to head with me running Tuesdays. And I'm not switching days. I'll let them blink. Even though they're the ones that have the advantage over me. Point being, I got that spot because I wanted it, and I think it makes sense there, and that's what I'm sticking with. And if that means I miss out on Gail Kim's agenting, God, that's tough to say. Agenting. It's really not that tough. Anyway, I'm missing out on those people. I don't like it. But such is life as a professional wrestling promoter. That's my very least expensive talent. Referees. That's kind of slightly dated there as far as pre-show possibilities. Just wrestlers that can work relatively cheap. I mean, Coughlin and Connors are both really, really good. I've seen both wrestle multiple times. When New Japan Pro Wrestling's come to the Nashville area, they were on the last two cards. But for this show, I've got to find somebody for Shannon Moore to beat. And then we're going to use that momentum from Moore to help the return of PB Smooth, one of the guys sent down for developmental seasoning from the main roster. At least that's the idea, since Smooth got injured against Moore in a pre-show match in Smooth's very first match with Launch Wrestling, my company. Probably, as opposed to going through that list right there, makes more sense to look here and say, okay, who's available? Like Big Cass, he lost a number one contender match last week to Connor, which is why Connor's getting the world title shot here. Cass is higher popularity-wise. And that loss might have hurt him a little bit. Oh, he's down to a 49. And some of these don't stay, because it, just like real life, popularity can fluctuate. But still, 49, that's just fine. Although I almost would think, like, I really want to bring in Filthy Tom Lawler. I think he and Velasquez would be a good team. But in this case, I want to have Gulak get the win over Velasquez, and Velasquez's partner be the one to drop the fall. And we've got some guys that are, you could justify for that. But like, I've got Hawkins. I wouldn't just throw him in there randomly, because he normally is teammates with Ryder. But, and this is a good thing, the game tends to value in-ring ability at times more even than the popularity of somebody. Now, ultimately, any way you want to slice it, from lucha libre to sports entertainment to Japanese strong style, it is a star-driven business. But there's stars and there's the perception of who's a star. And one turning a negative into a positive, with my situation being so low as far as overall, where I'm listed as insignificant, is a 2 rating, 2 out of 100. But the roster, that's where it used to say roster overview, now it says contracts. So the difference between 2016 and this, a lot more information here. Now it's a lot of walls of text, but you can sort it. But I brought this up not to go over this much, or as much as show almost everybody's perceived as a major star. And it took me a little while to figure out exactly what this meant, but then I got it. This used to be main event, upper mid-card, lower mid-carder, opening match, and then enhancement talent. There's not a spot for that to be decided. As in somebody, I guess, who's coming into the company but hasn't arrived yet. Although I'm not 100% sure on that. And because I don't have to pay a downside guarantee for anybody, and I don't have to book them if I don't want to. I could have somebody under a handshake deal on if I don't book them for the next 6 months. Now, to be fair, I did turn off one of the settings as far as wrestlers complaining if they're left off a show. But that wasn't done as much to have a bloated roster as it was to as experience playing with larger companies and knowing that I didn't want guys whining and griping because they weren't booked for like a small show in a new market, like running Canada in front of 500 fans, and I've got my B and C talent with some local favorites that are Canadian. I'm not going to take my my top paid guys and shoehorn him onto the show because it's going to sell out either way. But that's the level of subtlety that I'm not going to press the issue too much as far as that goes with the game. So Theory come in and take on Rush. Gulak. You know what I could do? Instead of having, you would think Velasquez and Filthy Tom, I could bring in Filthy to align with Drew Gulak. Now we're talking. This could work. It makes me mad in some ways that MLW Fusion doesn't receive more attention. It's a great show. I'm not saying that just because Tom's on there. What Court Bauer has done, and he has some really bad luck timing-wise, and timing is everything in life. But as far as getting MLW going at a time right before WWE really freaked out over the ITV renewal of World of Sport over in the UK, and that suddenly WWE became very much more aggressive in trying to sign up everybody. I mean, everybody, it seemed like, short of maybe like nails. But, if the thought was that a wrestler or a manager or whoever could make money for another company, try and bring them in. Yeah, Catchpoint being reunited has potential. Yeah, to me, Fusion's great. I lived down in Tampa for 5 years. I went to an MLW show in 2003. That's the one time I saw Steve Dr. Death Williams wrestle. I saw Masato Tanaka against Mike Awesome on that show as well. And then years and years later, they turned MLW into like a podcast network kind of setup, and then that's grown into what MLW has returned to be. And I get the impression that they've got some sort of deal that is imminent that will hopefully help them gain more exposure. I have BN Sports where they air. I've got that on my satellite. That's because I've got Dish Network, and because one of my main gigs involves the NFL draft, I have to watch a lot of college football. I like watching college football, but it's something I have to do. Be up to speed with everybody. And so that means like the full sports pack. So I'm definitely not a cord cutter to that end. But that also means I get random channels like BN Sports. So I get to watch it, and it makes me mad when they seem like it's, I'll hear 3 or 4 different reviews of SmackDown, uninspired drivel. And I don't believe the performers either. They're doing what they're told. But then for a great product like Fusion, just doesn't get any sort of like review or acknowledgement, even though it's on YouTube as well, at least it has been. So it's not like it's unavailable to people, but there's a lot of really good talent out there right now, a lot of really good product. So Filthy's at 57. It's got potential. And this is another case where how real life versus how the game is might not match up, because I don't think it's a deal with what Filthy has with MLW, where you can just go work for somebody else, randomly work an AEW show. It's just, I don't think that's how it's set up, but in the game it is, and so we'll see how this works. Now, I'm only allowed to offer handshake deals as a child promotion, and AEW, my parent company, has stipulated I can't go above 10%. Yeah, Pillman Jr. Yeah, it's too bad they never were able to make it work with Pillman Jr. against Liger in a singles match. I know they had a 6-man tag together, but I saw Pillman Jr.'s dad wrestle in person before. And that was just so sad when Brian Pillman Sr., when he died. 1997. It doesn't feel like as long ago as it really is, at least not to me. But yeah, but he's definitely has been a solid member of the roster there for MLW. All right, so 1,400. We're flying in from Vegas. I'm not sure where he's actually listed here. Southwest, so yeah. Yeah, we'll fly in Filthy. Yeah, 1,400. They'll probably want more because I'm not going to give them the merch shells cut above this because I can't. Got a 15% against the AEW block. So we'll see if I can negotiate something better. And because I can't go up on the cut of the merch sales, I've got to either up the money or part ways and go in another direction. 14, 15. Yeah, I mean, I think Harry Smith getting to MLW, that has been a good thing. I know he's working there, but before though, with as Davey Boy Smith Jr. in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but yeah, I think having them aligned in MLW has been a positive. $1,475. Let's go $1,499. Come on, Filthy. $1,550. Dude. At some point, I'm gonna get the CEO in here. It'll be Dave Prazak telling me can't offer him any more than this. $1,530. Teddy Hart's. Let me tell you about Teddy Hart. But from what I've seen from him with the in-ring, he's very flashy. I had a much higher opinion of Teddy Hart before I saw his YouTube series with Maria Manic. Because once the novelty of Teddy Hart chatterboxing away wears off, it ended up reflecting him in a bad light, and he did it to himself. It just... I don't know the guy personally. He's never done anything to me or whatever, but I hope he can figure something out that's going to be a positive. The stuff with the cats is intriguing to me because cat's going to do what it wants to do, but I don't know what he does with those cats, and I'm not... I mean, I worked for years and years as a TV news producer, and that jaded me to a lot of stuff, jaded me to a whole lot of stuff, but it still bothers me to see the potential mistreatment of either animals or children. And if I reach the point where that doesn't bother me, I've got a serious problem. But so you see those cats, and it's like I don't know. It's getting a cat to do a moonsault's impressive, but not if you have to do something that is cruel, otherwise not fitting for what you would do to an animal. So that's a long way of saying with the in-ring, I think he's always had that, but it's going to be Teddy doing things his way. And again, seeing that YouTube series, that just you could feel, and I could tell it was coming a mile away, just seeing, because I've been around the block enough times. But you had Maria Manic, who was like getting more and more like frustrated, and then outright having contempt for him, and that contempt never really goes away. But like, it just, the more I saw Teddy, the more it worked against him, I thought, in that setting. And I don't know, to me, the perception will probably always be he had this tremendous talent, but wasn't able to keep it together to utilize it well, to maximize it. So that's my opinion. What's your take? All right, Tom, let's go 1550. The holdout. $15.99. I'm halfway tempted to bring him in as a one-off and beat him. Also paying the travel cost was not cheap. That is what we're gonna do. $16.25. Maybe we'll get the run-in from Dave Prazak here, my CEO, to tell me you can't spend X amount more to bring in Filthy. Dude, come on. $16.99. How much merch should we sell in one show, dude? $17.25, and he's definitely going to be the one dropping the fall. Now, he might take this and say, okay, but I want creative control, at which case we'll have to not go in that direction. Man. He's a 57 rating, so I can't, I guess, complain too much, but we'll get our money's worth out of him. There we go, $17.50. One appearance, though. It's okay. And the reason I do this on Wednesday is because I run every Tuesday, and this is the first opportunity after the prior show to go through and hire some people to come in and potentially work the next one. So I will end up teaming, I'll put the double question marks just in case, but yeah, Tom wants his money, hey. And he deserves it too in real life. I'm not sure what kind of deal he struck with MLW, but I know he's also able to do some mixed martial arts. I lost a lot of respect for UFC and whatever shred of respect I had left for USADA and the whole testing program. The whole thing was like, where Tom's career was basically just ruined because of supposed picograms of some obscure thing. You know, meanwhile, John Jones, you know, how many... Don't get me started on John Jones. But just, you know, unfair treatment as far as you want to compare one to another. And of course, there's a sliding scale when you've got stars, etc. But anyway, so I've got him coming in now. I've got him working this one show. Yeah, Code Brazil, yeah. Although I don't know if I got him in as a regular or as a one-off. Let's see. No. Oh, he's one of my best bargains. $70 a show. Now, he's also, I guess, got hired by NXT UK. So let's see. Okay, it's a handshake deal, so we can work both. Yeah, I mean, look, I understand John Jones is a big-name fighter that's had a lot of big wins in his career, but it's very off-putting to me. And because they just are so blatant about it, they don't even pretend. They put in the pretense, at least. They don't even try. And when I run across that from a sports organization, it bothers me. Although I'm not, I mean, live MMA is probably the most intense thing I've ever seen as far as combat sports. Like, where you can physically feel it in the air, that tension. And look, I've called a lot of broadcasts, a lot of sports over a lot of years. Never called an MMA match. But being like, this was like at a bar, like down in Birmingham, I went to one. It was early 2007, I guess it was. Down like the, 4 points, 5 points, whatever it is in Birmingham. I was only there for a year, so pardon me for not remember the number of points. But one of the bars down there, and it was super intense though. So seeing it live in person was really something. But that's not my thing as much as it is for some people. Each his own. But they screwed over Tom every way possible. It seemed like with a ridiculous, that whole testing thing that I don't buy. I'm skeptical. And then for UFC to just, they never utilized him properly, and I don't really know why, but that's their loss, most definitely. So, okay, I'm gonna go. Let's be going indefinitely here if I don't go ahead and figure the rest of it out. So, Filthy Tom, it's about a 57 popularity. Yep. Gulak. Reach that point in the music where it loops back around again. You know, keep in mind some of these guys are working other territories, like particularly Impact. For the next TV taping, in all likelihood, so we can't just plug anybody in. Still creative here. I normally do this sort of thing before I start the feed to get stuff figured out, but it was getting late enough in the night here anyway that I need to go ahead and get started. So let's see what we can find here. I mean, really, I've gone through and see what it says about PJ Black. One time known as Justin Gabriel in WWE, I think. I mean, look at that right there. The basics, the selling, consistency, boom, 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 boom. Technical's very strong, so it makes sense with Gulak. 44 in popularity. $800 a show is a lot more reasonable than north of 1,700 or whatever. And let's see, as far as he's got a handshake deal with Ring of Honor. And that works fine for me because scheduling-wise, Ring of Honor, and the other, an event, okay, that'd be kind of a weekend. But besides that, it's just a Wednesday, which the way it's set up here is weekly, even though I know Ring of Honor in real life tapes, and then they air several days or several weeks from that just because of the expense of running weekly TV. But then again, Impact does the same thing, and I'm running into problems where Impact is supposedly having a show every Tuesday night in this game. Oh, don't be started on Riddle. The nonsense with cannabis. It's going to be really something someday when it finally is legal. And if people only really understood the whole reason that was outlawed to begin with. I mean, this isn't the place for me to rant about that, really. But point is that, yeah, it was ridiculous the way Riddle was treated. It's ridiculous that you get without cause piss test to see if you have traces of cannabis. Meanwhile, load yourself up with Toradol. Just go ahead and just use the dangerous painkillers because of the people that run a profit on that. Again, I could go all night on that, so I'm not going to. It's really not the place for it. Yeah, over Canada it is. And the older I get, the more I resent the lies, the outright lies I was told about it when I was younger. It just infuriates me to no end. But and the worst part of it all is that it really had nothing to do with cannabis or marijuana to begin with. It had to do with hemp. Where you had William Randolph Hearst, and all these media outlets had a strong interest in the lumber industry, the timber industry. And a lot of other things. If I get started on this, it'll be another hour putting this card back together. But yeah, it should be legal. Even if you don't choose to use it yourself, it's just completely nonsensical on every. I had to write a lot of stories in my TV news career about a lot of things that happened with drugs that were bad. Horrible things, people overdosing, people having a heart attack, whatever. I broke in the TV news business in 1997. I never once had to write a story about anybody overdosing on cannabis. You know why? Because you can't. Meanwhile, that's the one that's a Schedule I drug. Cocaine is not scheduled as harshly. Now, you're not going to go to a pharmacy and get an 8-ball for the weekend, okay? But like for specific situations, like eye surgery for numbing purposes. But it's change can take time, but change is happening. And I had to bite my tongue for so long about it because it just infuriated me. Just because when you learn the reasons why, it makes no sense, but you try and tell it to people that don't want to hear it, and sometimes you have to wait for the world to change when it comes to something like that. Well, and I'm not trying to advocate it for anybody. But the notion that you'd be arrested for illegal plant, I mean, it just makes no sense. But, you know, it's... Anyway, this is not the... not going to have Val Venus on later this hour to discuss it, although... Actually, it would be fun, but that's not in the cards. So PJ Black, negotiating. Slater, who's injured, supports it. Alright, so I have to pay him for his transport. He's based out of the Southwest. Everybody bring it out of the Southwest. If you're working Southeast like I am, I'm based there. They always make you pay for the transport. They're never... It's a non-starter, at least in my experience, for anybody there. Which is fine, because if somebody's coming in from, you know, San Diego or Phoenix or whatever, Long Beach, flying into the 2 or 3 time zones to the east, yeah, I can handle it. So let's see, so we negotiate. Yes, we're going to do that. It's covered, 10%, $800 a show. Let's hopefully see if this will work. Alcohol is much worse than weed. That's the other thing. I mean, all the stories I've had to write through the years about drunk driving accidents, and look, I mean, alcohol prohibition was an abject failure either, don't get me wrong. You know, you look at organizations like MAD, where at one point it was about stopping, you know, people driving drunk, and it became this neo-prohibitionist organization that gets about as much of a pass from the media as anybody. And I tell you that from experience trying to argue it, you know, when the people stop being rational about it, it becomes problematic. But even all that said, I mean, it just, yeah, it is. It's much worse, you know. And not that people don't get high and then do stupid stuff when they're stoned or whatever, but just to waste the resources, the massive resources spent on this absolute nonsense, because laws are in place by people with massive amounts of money coming in from big pharma. And that controlled the media message for the longest time. And, okay, I gotta tell the story I was talking about. Okay, here's how it works. You're working as a producer, anchor, whatever, on a weekend newscast. And you get a tip from the sheriff's department, yeah, we're gonna have this big bust out here at 1 o'clock. You know, keep it quiet, we'll bring somebody out here and get the video of it. On a weekend, you're not gonna find somebody to give the counter argument to, hey, maybe we shouldn't be wasting these thousands and thousands of dollars on a plant. You know, you can't make that counter argument. And if you try to, good luck. I mean, that's... But I think that's where social media has changed things, because the lies and the propaganda put out there. And again, the more I learned about it, the more it just drove me up the walls. Like, this is unacceptable. But, you know, what can you do as one person, you know? But, and not, make it legal for everybody but me. I'm not saying, like, even for me. I'm talking, like, you know, something like, I know Mauro Ranallo has talked about how much of a positive thing that's meant for him. You know? And it took, like, ballot initiatives in the United States to get the thing started to begin with, because politicians were just freaked out. Even though you look at the way the polls are, and, you know, adult use cannabis legalization polls extremely well. You'd think these politicians want to jump on board with it more, but not necessarily. And, you know, that's where patience and time. But now that the business, the industry is going, now they've got some lobbying money. So things will change at some point. But yeah, but the whole point about Riddle, though, is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous that, you know, that he would, and like WWE today, because, you know, they do the whole thing, is the independent contractors illegally treated, you know, under these very much exclusive contracts and micromanaged for every little thing they have to do. They could, you know, completely flaunt the law on that and just abuse their staff in all sorts of ways, as I understand it. But the quote unquote weed tax, where they can fine you over and over if you test positive for, you know, for cannabis. God, it's just so ridiculous, though. And again, not to advocate it for anybody either. Not pushing it, just saying all the money spent on that and fighting that. And then there's the whole thing with opiates. And look, I worked in television in West Virginia. I had 2 stints there. And the OxyContin, that was 20 years ago, that was a serious, serious problem. And, but at least I think opinions are finally changing, because the propaganda has been, shown to be incorrect and untrue. But it was, when you're a news producer, though, you've got to, you're presenting what the facts are, and you might think that it's ridiculous not to be able to give the other side, but where's this other side you're going to get it from, to me, it's, it just, I didn't go on this whole sidebar about it, but it just, it defies logic in some ways, and then in others it shows you the power of the status quo. Momentum can be a powerful thing, good or bad. Okay, so the offer is made to PJ Black. That's a good thing. He almost for sure will say yes. So that sets up for the semi-main. And what's the skill? 44? Yeah, 44. I'm halfway tempted to give him the win. His team will win, but as far as like giving Black the, take the fall over, sorry, Filthy Tom, over our one-off visitor Tom Lawler. Yeah, fentanyl. That's a whole different issue too. That's the thing. The overdoses are people that get, something that's not what they thought it was, and it cost them their life. And I had to write, I don't know how many stories about people that died on overdoses in my time as a news producer. That's part of the job. I didn't like having to write bad news. I don't like when people had to hear bad news from stuff I had to write, but that's what the job entails. And it's like, I knew exactly, it's not tough to figure it out. There was this big pipeline from Detroit, Michigan down to Huntington, West Virginia. And there's certain, that's a whole other sidebar. But there was a girl I dated for a time, my second run in Huntington, that ended up dying of an overdose. Now, I never saw her do anything except for the cigarettes I wouldn't let her smoke in my apartment. I never saw her, use any drugs, but I'm not stupid. It was a couple years later, and it was one of those very strange things to run across, just like on Facebook. I'm never on Facebook anymore. I do not like Facebook. But I was on there, and it's like, you see, it's weird to learn about somebody that you knew or were intimate with having passed away, and you don't find out about it until 2 years later or whatever. So anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. But yeah, point is, though, is that fentanyl is a huge problem, just like the opiate and the opioid addiction problem is one that there are no easy answers. Their efforts tried to curb it, but anyway, I didn't get any of that going. But that's the danger of these live streams. It's like I turn to broadcaster mode when I turn off the whole filtering thing and just actually speak my mind. Sometimes it can be problematic, but so be it. Where am I here? Okay, launch TV week 6. So we got the main event for the title. PG Black should be coming in team with Gulak against Cain Velasquez and as a one-off Filthy Tom. I'll put here that Black is a 44. Casanova. I can keep somebody in-house. It doesn't have to be somebody I bring in. He's a 30 rating. it's not overly important who I pick for this spot because Casanova's going over. I just want to make sure it's somebody that he'll benefit from going up against. Say 28 or 30. These rankings do change on a fairly regular basis, which is a good thing. That's realistic. 30, okay. That warm momentum. So. Kept him pretty strong thus far. He's victorious in his last 2 matches. And as much as teaming up or pitting him against Gregory Helms, I thought would be a good thing. Ended up not working out so well, but I mean the reality is that Helms in this game is 45 years old. He's got, a lot of stuff that makes him a very good agent. And he's got a lot of this down as far as the basics, etc. But it's just the way it goes. Time waits for no man. But those two, especially Morton, very effective in being used as road agents. Although Morton, for whatever reason, wouldn't let me reclassify him. You just have to click on his name here. Some of this stuff, you just kind of figure things out. It can be frustrating. So occasional wrestler, on-screen personality. I tried road agent, and that's a no-go. Not a big deal. You can just have him do it anyway, and it's not a problem. It just won't let you actually classify him as such. And again, as much as it's a negative to be I guess now a 2 out of 100, from a perception standpoint, like out of 100, not like number 2 overall, isn't. But we were 0 just a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully the growth will be, if not exponential, then certainly faster. We'll get things up and going, and then we'll find out how it really works as far as being a child company with a parent AI and how that whole interaction and process works. Petey Williams. So I hired him. He moved to the southeast to cover his transport, his travel. But because he's also under contract or has a deal with Impact, I mean, it's written, but it's not exclusive, so that doesn't matter. Just Impact is larger than me, the way this game determines it, unless somebody's like loyal to a promotion, like you'd see in this 2016 game. And I imagine it's in this one as well, but that just comes to mind. But in this case, if Impact's going to use them on a Tuesday night, I can't use them. But we'll find out here before this live stream ends. As far as any of these guys that have been working Impact the last couple of weeks, if they're not going to be used on tonight's card when that Tuesday runs around, if so, in theory at least, I should be able to use them. But I don't know that for sure. Was it changing in the game editor as far as like the popularity? I thought about doing that. I thought I was starting like at 10, but then I was curious what happens if you do start at 0. I was like, how tough is it really? That's part of the fun of this to me, because this game has such remarkable amount of depth. And again, it can be overwhelming with all the stats and the boxes and everything. As a wider screen, that means a lot more info. Of course, look at my stats. This looks sparse by comparison. Oh, the road agent. Yeah, I think that's how maybe you have to do it with the game editor. But I'll have to check that out later as far as that goes. So you think maybe under skills, like you could adjust it here, but that's just not how it works. Click on the name, and again, there's not a hyperlink so you would know. Maybe the whole line is a hyperlink. Maybe I'm just not being savvy about it. interesting. So you can start someone as a trainee. You can create a wrestler for a database, not in 2016. Let's give that a look. I've never really messed with that all that much in this series. In part because there's some really talented people with great imaginations in some cases with the Thunderverse, which is another like kind of Cornellverse where it's make-believe stuff. But it's like the Thunderverse is really deep. I had a lot of fun with that. That's the last one that I had play in 2016. In part when this was getting ready to come out, I was like ramping back up toward it. Right. So we've got PJ Black coming in. And again, these are all handshake deals. I have zero obligation to book them for anything beyond that first show where I bring them in. I do that. If I do that, I don't have to book them. I mean, I think at least once makes sense, unless they're, working another show that's heads up with you every week, like Impact. All right. I'm not looking for the pricey one-offs here, because that would be somebody that would have the Filthy Tom spot in that semi-main. But because my promotion's so small, I could have a mediocre show and it would still improve my popularity in like 48 regions or whatever it is, 46, all that I have at least clearance, which is everything but Oceania and India. All right, let's see. So Casanova, really need to figure out somebody to have him go against. We'll look at Southeast based. Simon Grimm, the former Simon Gotch, another person with MLW connections. He might be somebody I want to bring in as a one-off. Let's see. Although, actually, let me think this through. I'm sure I've got somebody in my roster here that I can use to have a good match. Maybe Stardom. Maybe put Max Stardom against him. Let's see. Max Stardom. Ooh, okay, 18 popular. Winning and losing matters. He's at 18. Yeah, Team Filthy, that's right. I have to find a spot for Danhausen, since this is his final show with me before he gets called up to the AEW main roster. But I mean, it's not like he's had some, world beater matches, but I mean, that 46 against ACH, that wasn't like a pre-show thing either. That when I saw that, okay, maybe it's probably for the best that he is going up to the main roster. I could team up with Cody Hall. You see something like Casanova. I could put Casanova in a tag match with Big Cass, because I want Cass on the show. He lost last week, but put him on the undercard, so there's precedent with them having teamed up before. Granted, it was a 6-man tag, and it's not like once you team up with somebody, you're like friends for life. But in this case, it would make sense. It's a way to use Cass and Casanova, which I didn't really think of until just now. The similarities there, but. And granted, one is a high flyer who's small, and the other is a heavyweight who's definitely not small. And I wouldn't want people to think of, I mean, certainly not like the Enzo, approach. That's not the idea with that at all, actually. But as a one-time thing, having them team up, that might work. So put Casanova and Big Cass. So 49. There's no roulette. You have to list the person with the higher popularity first, but just for ease of use here, I think I'm going to go with that. Well, Crazy Steve's an Impact guy, and I can't book anybody else from Impact right now, or even handshake deals, because I can't trust they'll actually be available. Since their Impact's running Tuesday nights, heads up with me. So let's see what Danhausen. And that's the play. That's definitely the play, because Cody Hall with Danhausen. Big Cass has like this ongoing feud with Cody Hall, and then it started with me just basically trying it out and say, okay, how would this work if I'm booking an undercard feud? How would this play out? And that was also with a big popularity differential between Big Cass, very much high up there. What was it, like a 50-something? Now he's a 49, and then Cody Hall at a 21. So big disparity, but it actually worked out decently. And having them on opposite sides in a tag match, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Especially since we can have, let's see. Both Cody Hall and Danhausen, I believe, are 21 popularity. Although this match is less about popularity and more about the functionality of, Casanova gets another big win. He keeps the momentum going. Big Cass lost the singles match last week, but in a tag match gets the win. And the heat back on a little bit with Cody Hall, although I don't know where I would go from there. And I really don't want to like spin Casanova into a feud with Cody Hall, that is, just because I think Casanova is a smaller wrestler, would not benefit from that. But in this particular case, it's not like Hall has to drop the fall, because Danhausen's the one on his way up and thus out, and thus this would be the spot to use him. Because next week I'll have Cody Hall back, but I won't have Danhausen back. That's always a consideration. So, of that. We have the Theory one-off. We have the Tom Lawler, definitely one-off. PJ Black offered a handshake ongoing deal. Very good bargain, actually, considering that 44 popularity. All right. And these numbers aren't, where I'm locked in, have to stick with them in this particular order. I just, from a planning standpoint, I found that this works. Plus 8 matches for a 2-hour show, and it's 2 hours without commercials. So, it's not even a true TV show, since you have to be a medium tier or higher to have an actual television show. But the workaround is you just have weekly events at the same time, on the same day, and I even call it TV. It's Launch TV number 6 or whatever. It's an event. But it's almost like the, and I hate to draw any comparison with a project I'm doing in early TNA, but those TNA weekly pay-per-views. That company first started. So essentially we should be close to having the main show filled in. Some of these guys I'll try and work in on the undercard. But I don't have to if I don't want to, because it's all handshake deals. But I'd like to have at least there's a purpose of some sort with every match I book for the main show. A hero retains against Connor, Battle of the Unbeatens. PJ Black debuts. Filthy Lawler debuts as a one-off. Either Gulak or Black pin Lawler. I might go with Gulak on that, but not necessarily. I want PJ Black to get off to a good start. And he will either way. But we should have some options. Austin Theory. I forget what his rating is offhand. Doesn't matter at the moment anyway. So we'll have that taken care of. And just because of the coincidence, just the unfortunate event of Dax Harwood getting was it eardrum injury of some sort, that technically he could work through it the way it's set up, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, that's an excuse to have Fred Yehai team up with Wheeler, because they have teamed up before a couple of times in 6-man tags. That's a chance for, I got Primo beating Yehai here, and it sets up a nice excuse for the Colognes to challenge next for the Launch Wrestling World Tag Team Championship, currently held by FTR. Cass and Casanova. It's more like Casanova over as well. Get the rub from Tino and Big Cass again. And probably Casanova pinning Danhausen on his way out. And I don't know how much more I want to do with Cody Hall and Big Cass, but then this following week I can work in a third person and maybe take Cass out of the equation and work in somebody lower card. That's the thing I can contemplate between the end of this broadcast and the beginning of the next one. Shannon Moore, it's listed as a 41 popularity, but that's misleading as far as what I can expect match-wise, because, well, easier for me to show you than to tell you. With the exception of, FTR. And that was the very first show, because there wasn't a week 1 June show for me, because I had nobody or even a handshake deal at that point. The only person on the roster was me. As in, like, Lou Pickney, me, the person who I put in the game as a broadcaster, because I'm a sports broadcaster in real life. So, I do like the search function. It's very easy to clear out what was in there before, but it also remembers what you've done. Even if you played and, saved it, turned off your computer, or started back up the next day, played it more, it will remember your last search. At least that's been my experience almost exclusively. All right, let's see. Let's find some selling that's decent. Okay, I didn't narrow things down too much. No. A wrestler. With Doan, he and Jesse Goddard were unsuccessful on the last show, challenging for the Launch World Tag Team Championship. And so I'm holding them off this next show here to cool off for a week after the loss, and then bring them back by and beat somebody. And although I'm not sure if I'm going to keep Doan with Goddard for long, they just kind of, I needed somebody to team up, and they kind of fit what I was looking for and gelled well enough where I thought, okay, let's give it this little bit of a run, because I hope to have FTR holding on to the tag belts for a while. And, unless it start to feel like, a thin roster where I have the same tag teams going over and over again. This leaves with a bit of variety, a team they hadn't fought before, but I made it where they had like a, plausible reason to challenge for the championship. In hindsight, putting that match on in the main event, not my best move. But being a developmental territory and having such a low rating to begin with as far as popularity goes, I've got a lot of latitude to potentially mess things up as far as what you would normally think of as a successful card. But I'm still trying my best as if I had to, it needs to be a 60 or bust or something like that. There it is. I was looking over there for popularity, and it was way off. too demanding. Zen Shanny to find an opponent for as well. We'll do that in a minute. He's at 25, which is kind of weird, but I would love to have a spot for Perkins ready to go filled in, but I have to just anticipate he'll be working Impact, and then if I'm wrong, then I'll adjust, and that'll be a good problem to have, but I just can't trust him at this point. Same with Petey Williams. There'll be Leo Rush defending the sprint. That's a one fall, 10-minute time limit. Championship defended every week on television. A mix of the CMLL Lightning match, the one fall, 10-minute matches they have there, the Lucha Libre, and the old Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ TV title, where it's defended every week on TV. Only, unlike Smoky Mountain, when they cut you off at 5, it would make you vacate. In this one, you can keep going as long as you keep winning or time limit draw, as long as you can make television. Now, if you have to miss a defense, you got to vacate. And that was the thing I tried out, just kind of messing around with possibilities with that Thunderverse save I talked about my last time going through with 2016. And it worked very well. And I've done the same thing here, and thus far been very pleased with it. It's a bit unusual with Jimmy Lloyd, because I've got him teaming up sometimes with Josh Briggs. Now, Briggs is not on this list, but that's because I narrowed it down to something that he didn't qualify for, apparently. But let's see. But the difference was that Briggs was someone signed by AEW, my parent company, and then sent to me for developmental. But more than anything, they're an undercard tag team that can have, I mean, obviously Hawkins and Ryder are much more highly, not visible, but much higher profile, popularity-wise. Oh, the cough button. Take a sip of Diet Peach Snapple. Hit your windpipe, start coughing. But luckily, butt makes me have to worry about that. All right. Anyway, I was saying though, Lloyd and Briggs, with them teaming up there, so I won't use Lloyd here. I'm saving Goddard for the next show. I mean, I could use him here, but I'm not to put somebody over now. I mean, I paid him $600 a show, and he's a 40 in popularity. Now, okay, he's got certain limitations, right? Although it's funny because I knew him from the TV show Big Brother before anything with pro wrestling. Although he talked on that show about wanting to be a pro wrestler. Dude has a great drop kick. Plays a great heel, both in television and in wrestling. Slater, let's see, out injured with the meniscus tear. So we have to go to skills to find the injury, which is weird, but that's just how you have to do it. 8 months, so better than the year plus that he was staring down before it was like a very, I was able to choose. I didn't have to have him have surgery, and it was very low likelihood of trouble. But it could have been, instead of cutting it from a year and 2 months to 8 months, it could have been made things a lot worse. But it turned out okay, just like it turned out okay for PB Smooth. But at some point, I imagine you push things too much, you start getting your guys that are hurt in even worse shape. So Cody Hall, got that tag match. Sabin, again, love to book him, but Impact. Heroes in my main event tonight. Already had plans for Wheeler. Brody King, I could book him, he's working through it, but a dislocated ankle. I mean, if I'm paying $1,800 for a Brody King booking, I want the healthy Brody King. I mean, the 56 popularity is great, don't get me wrong. But it does no one any good to have him come in there and work injured. And again, I don't want to book the same wrestlers on every show every week, like what WWE does, to the point where you get sick of everybody and nothing means anything. Although with certain wrestlers, it makes sense to have them on more frequently, like Leo Rush. That's max as far as the popularity with my company goes. Besides that Laredo Kid match, everyone's been 61 or higher. And in some cases against Yay High and Hallow Wicked, where these were not highly rated opponents. But Leo Rush, and again, wasn't like they had 20 minutes either. 10 minutes or less, that's the rule. But since they went to a draw, the champion retains, and that counts as a successful title defense. So very similar to like television titles you might have seen in one place or another. But with that use of the clock, which is a powerful storytelling element that pro wrestling just throws away. Even New Japan doesn't get it right. Nobody gets it right. TNA 2004 got it right, and then pissed that away when they went to Spike and just regressed to what they became. Anyway, so I need to find. Drop the selling down a little bit and see if that adds anybody now. Okay, I could put like No Way Jose in with one of these guys, but I don't think so. Wrestler to hire. Ideally somebody based in the US, but it doesn't have to be like that. Active wrestler. Popularity, and it always makes sense when you're based in one specific area, not just but USA, but like Southeast. Let's see, look for Shannon Moore. We'll go 25, 45. This pop-up box. If I clicked right here, I should make that pop-up box disappear to move to this next one. Although I think he might also be a no-go because he's a brawler. Even though one of my match requirements includes a wild brawl, as far as what they expect from me from a product standpoint. Now, if you get away from that and go to popularity, go back and forth without trouble. But you switch over to employment, and you get the owner gold warning box that gets up right in your grids. I mentioned Simon Grimm. Southeast. I mean, he's not going to, any space flying tiger drops or a Moxley versus Ishii type hardcore match. But I think he'll fill what I'm looking for. $190 a pop. Decent popularity. Handshake deal, 10% don't have to pay for travel, $190 a show. I mean, that price. And because I won't have to pay him anything if I don't want to, I just won't book him. And I can say, okay, at some point I can go through and say, no, we're not going to use you anymore, so we're letting you go, even though it costs neither of us anything to keep this going. Only problem is it tends to make this list here go down multiple pages, but that's almost a time-honored tradition for me at this point in this game. That's the way I like to play it, because that's how I would do it in real life. Particularly with a situation like this where I'm not signing guys to these large, guaranteed written contracts. where I can have a very large volume of potential wrestlers used on any show, which means more variety. Doesn't cost me anything extra, unless they're like somebody that's a bad personality that's like, a malcontent. Short of that, it doesn't hurt me at all to have them around. $200. Okay. So we'll bring in Simon Grimm, former Simon Gotch. Grimm, was he 26 or 28? 28 popularity. Well, had some pre-show matches, but I think we're in a good spot here. The game, I believe, is pretty good at saving regularly, but I tend to prefer to actually hit that save icon there from time to time just to be on the safe side. Other than quote-unquote call-ups for WWE, like they called up Shawn Michaels, which was very amusing on the last show. And this is like the Mad Libs, or sort of or even Mad Libs, the name generator. Like it's NXT, it's random two people and some name that makes no sense. I was going to take a look at this. At least they can use the guys that we both have deals with, have them go over while they're there. That's a lot more palatable. Okay, now this is the Rebels, because that's all right. Petey Williams, at least I know where he was. He was working that match. I can see Gail Kim having been used as the road agent. Sabin as well for that. Scott D'Amore as well for that. And I guess TJP won, and Petey Williams was in that tag team, the Rebels. So okay, that is okay. And this is similar to 2016, where if they'll say there are rumors about contract extension, but then he could leave. They're saying it won't, but that's basically as a TEW Carney to let you know, if you want to make a move at this person, make an offer, do it now. And you basically only get one warning. So it's never good, in my opinion, to just skip multiple days unless you just don't care. Because otherwise you risk missing out on somebody that might have been under contract for the last 2 years coming up at that particular moment, but you missing out on it, and then I'm just re-signing with the place that you were at. You find yourself missing out on a potential opportunity to add some really good talent. Plus, it helps us go through at a glance and see what the rest of the world's doing. And 28 fans, so I can't get too worked up about anything at this point, because it is a small audience, but strong shows, that's important. Hey, Keith Lee getting called up. Wow. Anytime it's Killer Cross in this game. And in real life, I'll probably be there for like another 2 years. Oh, wow. So Laredo Kid going to CMLL. The exclusive. That's where I brought him before, and he had the one match me with launch, put over Leo Rush. Although that was, as I noted before, a disappointing match in a lot of ways. It was only a 57, with my company having, a a certain cap to it is still pretty good, but it's the worst of what Leo Rush has had match-wise, and he's faced much worse opponents. But that happens sometimes in life, like in real-life pro wrestling. And then Warrior Wrestling, the charity promotion out of Chicago Heights, with I still think there's something I don't know about that. Not casting any aspersions or anything as far as any claims. Just I don't know that situation well enough, and I haven't yet seen anything to make the money make sense. But I don't have their spreadsheet in front of me, so I don't know. And in this case, it's a video game, so it really doesn't matter. I guess I should think if there's anybody else I'm going to offer a deal to. Black. I can come back to Ross Von Erich at some point. That's a heck of a bargain. Brett Titus is a good price as well. I need to figure out who Zenshi will be going against. Lightweight high flyer. I'm almost tempted to expand my reach, or not my reach, but the area of consideration from based in USA to based anywhere, as long as they can work in the US. But I want somebody that can be flashy, that can fly. Okay. Are you telling me that Ace Romero, well, let's see, maybe he is. Maybe his skills are something I had underestimated. Oh, he's got a large range, I bet you. That is one way this will trick you, because if somebody has a very wide range, it can be 11 to 56. But if you do a search for 45 plus for a given thing, if it's, or even 55 plus for him, because the upper end of the range, and it's a wide range, but the upper end of it does go beyond that threshold. And that's something that's new for this game. And I like it in a lot of ways, because you can't just pin somebody down to a specific number and say that's how they are at all times. People have better days than others. 1,000 other factors can play into it. Now that's a wide range, a lot of it here, but I do want to bring in Alex Shelley. But I would prefer to have where's Sabin at? Have Chris Sabin and have them team up. But with Sabin working Impact, I mean, Shelley's great. Actually, I had a Ring of Honor game that I played with Total Extreme Wrestling 2016 that went on a long time. It probably would still be going on, like I said, my old computer died and that killed that off, which was unfortunate. Alright, so we're going back, or going forward, I should say, from that Wednesday. Eventually we'll go back around to the start of the next week, to Tuesday. That's my next show. Maybe Terry Taylor can reprise his Red Rooster gimmick. It's like the game doesn't quite understand how a developmental territory works in call-ups. In theory, they call him to be, I guess, a road agent, but in theory. $1 million plus viewers for Ring of Honor television. Okay, now this is going to be interesting because I've not run anything like this to this point. This is the screen where, like, if I were, I don't know, playing as Ring of Honor and I really want to bring in Ortiz, this would be the one time I would know, okay, now's your chance. And certainly I want to see AEW keep Ortiz, both in real life and in this game, but especially real life. He was hilarious. But he can also really go in the ring, too. And Santana's great. They make a wonderful tag team. A lot of other people trying to do the spot that Ortiz did over the past weekend with the Stadium Stampede match with a bell. I mean, it just would look ridiculous on paper writing it out, but yet the execution was brilliant. And they built on that even from Dynamite this past Wednesday night. Well, let's see what kind of weird name they came up with. Let's see, Kushida and Austin Theory. Technically flawless. I know Kushida's very good at technical. Well, there are worse names they could have come up with, I suppose. Right, nothing. One thing I have had to get used to compared to 2016 is instead of at the top left, I remember it being from that area. Now it's down here as far as the notifications. And the two in particular, the decisions. And the mail. Your diary is there, but that's just... the contracts, if you're running a company with actual, contracts that aren't from a parent company, but are your own, that would be helpful as far as the timetable. But the owner goal deadline is where I can't hire a brawler, I can't hire a comedy wrestler, and I have to remain above number 21 as far as the promotions worldwide. Although when I started, there were only 21. So for me to fail that, I would have to be in dead last place, and another promotion would have to start up and get ahead of me. But no other promotions dying or anything or falling below me. It's a low bar, is what I'm saying there in essence. Doesn't hurt to double check. I really should have done this before I moved ahead to make sure what I thought I'd offered I had. So we got Filthy Tom, PJ Black, Austin Theory, and Simon Graham. I should put the question marks around Simon Graham since he's not yet signed. And I'll need an opponent for Zenshi, but I'll figure that out. I'm hoping that maybe one of these wrestlers, I mean, not Gail Kim because she's just strictly a road agent, but someone I can, and not Scott D'Amore either, since he's not a wrestler, but TJP or especially Petey Williams or Chris Sabin, plug them with Zenshi, and that could be good. But if not, I have other wrestlers that, as you can see, are options. Have them beat, Trip Cassidy or something like that. Best in the last show. I could put him in there with Hal Wicked. But that's just me thinking out loud at this point. I don't know. I got through all this. So Thursday of week 2 becomes Friday of week 2. Hey, Billy Corgan. Saw the Smashing Pumpkins in concert when I was in college, fall in 1996. And wow, does that not feel like as long ago as it really is? 23 and a half years ago. Good memories. I went to Champaign, Illinois from Evansville, which is a bit of a drive, but somebody else was driving, so I didn't care. And we saw Garbage open. I love Garbage as well. So it was a fun concert. We didn't have very good, tickets were very high up, but I mean, look, I was a college student working multiple jobs. I mean, I was gonna every now and then have my road trip adventures, but on a budget. That's what happened to Mr. Aguila. Sternoclavicular? I know what the clavicle is. I know what the sternum is. I guess if I really want to know, I'll have to look it up online. Is that for 56 days? There's a shock performance of the night by Pentagon Jr. CMLL staying strong at the gate, 16,800. name generator that doesn't always make sense. Chessman and Pagano. Bobby Fish, who I might know. For some reason, I was thinking he was older. He's actually younger than me. I'm 42. I was thinking he was closer to my age. That's why I was reading somebody writing that. I don't think they actually looked it up. Maybe that's why. So Bobby Fish gets called up to the main roster, or recalled, like something that was like put on options down to the minors in Major League Baseball. Got recalled from AAA Columbus. For you. Well, rib fracture's not any good. Days. Guerrero's back to 100%. Here's Zelina. It is funny to me how this game treats relationships. Very, very detailed, and as always, I have to put the disclaimer out there. I don't know any of this to be true or untrue. Something that was just within the mod. I mean, I know that she's really married to Aleister Black, who I met him in Dallas, and he's known as Tommy End, a really nice guy. So, and that doesn't really affect me. I'm going to take a quick look at the businesses, because I talk about Launch Pro Wrestling, the one that I run. Again, there are two child companies of AEW. Mine, which is the men's promotion, and then Sharp, which is the strictly women's promotion. Now, I don't think Sharp has actually run a show yet. They finally got some people signed. And this has been as interesting to me perhaps as anything, because, okay, what happens when you have me playing as a human-controlled child company on one side, but then a strictly women's child company on the other, both connected to the same parent company in the form of AEW. But unlike me running it as a human, it's an AI child company to an AI parent company that also has me as a child company. To that end, that's why it's a little bit tough to make plans as far as the long-term or goals, because the goal really is just learning how it all works and seeing how it plays out, and seeing what fun can be had with it. At least that's been my approach. Sometimes it tricks you, so they'll start at the very top, looking for week 2 of July of 2020. And then my biggest gripes about this is the same as this. That should not be the case. If I want to go one at a time, I just do the layer up. If I want to go a full list at a time, I would do like that, like you normally would do. Now you notice that there was no Sharp Back in the Saddle event for July of Thursday, week 2, which would be the last night, but just last night. I guess they don't have enough wrestlers yet. So you got a trio of lucha shows, and that's it. I just now noticed that when you save it, it rather quickly pops up in red. It says saved, and it goes back to the game and the official version number. They've been rolling out a lot of the updates. They've been doing a very good job of listening to the community and finding things that can be improved or fixed or whatever, and providing fairly regular updates. And for whatever inconvenience there is to have to download it every time, it's very easy to switch out once you get it downloaded. It's well worth the effort involved. Still waiting to hear back, but that's why I didn't wait until now to offer. Put those offers in as soon as I could on Wednesday, that Wednesday following the Tuesday show. And the hope is by Tuesday of the following week to have everybody in place. That's the idea. Jimmy Jacobs is a smart guy. And I forget how in the world I ended up playing against him in Awards with Friends. He was on there, it was like Jimmy Jacobs X, like letter X. Maybe he posted on Twitter, or somebody posted, I don't know, maybe he wants to play a game. I think he won about as many as I did. I haven't played that game in a long time though, but point is he's smart from all indications. Very creative. What happened to Sami Zayn? What's it? A TFCC tear? Look, I've covered sports a long time. I know a lot about sports injuries. But it's like some sort of a strange acronym there, or abbreviation. Let's see, injured. Okay, well, now I'm going to make a note of it so I'll remember later. Zayn. TFCC tear. Daniel Bryan, would love to bring him in. Not counting on it. This right here is where it gets. I'm so used to it being up here still that it's tough for me. I have to remember to look down there. Although at least it's in yellow, and at least with the skin, that yellow is against a dark blue background, so it's not like it's where it doesn't stand out. All right, so Simon Grimm, and I've mentioned this a few times in this feed, but the complete all-worker signings is a very nice thing to have. In this case, there's just one, but I've seen before, like 6, 7, 8 people, especially when you're starting out and hiring a bunch of people, or at least putting together some handshake deals. So one by one have to go through kind of unnecessarily, laboriously, complete all signings. Now, if you want to be sure, look things over one more time. It's ongoing with Grimm, so it's fine. It's $200 a show, and he's local, so I don't have to pay for his transport. Well, count me in. So with that now known, now sorry Simon, you gotta lose in your opener. I'm sure you'll have to get over it. So we're still waiting for Austin Theory, Filthy Tom, PG Black. But it's Saturday. I've gotten told Tuesday for them to go ahead and decide. Don't want to miss anything here, so I'll give this the once over again. And they don't list the results for a show that was taped before. And that's not something new for 2020. They had it at least in 2016, if not earlier. Yikes. Savio Vega and Eric Stevens, a DQ finish. It annoys me that they won't show you the match times for other promotions. I mean, maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure how that works, how that information is rendered. They drew 881. But the viewership, my viewership, at least from the last show, is trying to creep up there toward them. Although actually I was thinking that's actually to like my number of viewers maybe times 10. So, but just seeing how they are, they've been established in real life in this game for a while. That has me hopeful that as time goes on, the ability to grow will be quicker. So if I wanted to make a play trying to sign Big E, I could, but I don't think as a child company to AEW that would make any sense at all. I mean, I guess it could, but I'm not going to pursue that. And Big E, particularly for being so big and powerful, he had the size, he's a very good worker. Yeah, Trevor Lee, that's the name that I knew him from the Indies when he was working for, what was it, a CWF Mid-Atlantic, something like that. But then, of course, in true WWE fashion, they ended up bringing him in and changed his name. Although Lee is a name, first and last name, that, you know, there's between Jake Lee and AJ Lee and all the rest, it gets to be a bit tough to keep track of them all. Or if anything else gets confusing, you're Lee, well, which one do you mean? So Simon Gotch, I guess they can use his WWE name there, and Akira Kwan as a Wild and Wicked. Some odd names these companies are coming up with. Or if not weird, just rather, not even generic, just maybe uninspired even, just like I said, The Last Stand. To Sunday. $32,000 fans for AEW. Fight for the Fallen. Maybe next year. Okay, this is good to know. Brody King's fully fit. So I have some latitude. Although I do want it to mean something when he comes back. And I wouldn't have him, like, it wouldn't make sense to have him come back just to challenge Chris Hero again, because Hero beat him in the title defense. Right now, Brody King is 0-1 in Launch Pro Wrestling, the company I'm running, child company. But it's an ongoing handshake deal, so I don't have to use them on every show. I don't have to use them in any shows. So, okay, we are still well below MLWs, but we went from like very, very, very low viewership at all to now 61,000 plus. And that was on the show prior to the one that'll be coming up here in just a bit. So, okay, we have Filthy Tom for that one off. PJ Black also in that match. Just complete all worker signings. Boom. So all we're waiting on is Austin Theory. In the event Austin Theory doesn't show up or doesn't strike a deal, but for Tuesday, I got options. It would surprise me for him to wait that long, but it could happen. Let's see how Moxley did in the Dare to Dream, the G1. A don't think that's how the G1 normally works. I mean, they have tag matches for the wrestlers when they're in 2 blocks, and their particular block isn't having tournament matches on that night, but you know, main event that way. That's right, with the New Japan in this game. There are a couple of guys that I think left, but Yuji Okabayashi, and then even bigger is that they've got Kento Miyahara. Or at least he'll be coming in soon if he's not in yet. And then you got Ospreay and the British J-Cup. Jimmy Havoc defeated Orange Cassidy by DQ, and the match was an 83. Behind only Lucha Brothers and Young Bucks, and the Jericho, Darby Allin, Cody Rhodes main event. Strong show for the parent company. 32,000 in attendance, 85 show rating. In excess of 858,000 viewers on pay-per-view. Some real nice money. Oh, that's wild. Guess I'd overlook that. So Moxley, who I guess right now still is the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. I don't know why they call it a heavyweight title. They only call it about half the time, since IWGP United States Champion is kind of a mouthful to begin with. There it is. $3.5 million plus viewers. New Japan World. I love New Japan World, by the way. Big fan of it. I mean, I have complaints as far as things that could be different. I wish the video quality was better, but I mean, look, I used to have to trade tapes to get months later to see great matches that I read about in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. So, I mean, I might complain here and there, but in general, especially for 999 yen per month, which is about $8.50 American, give or take. What's going on with New Day? Or she had Big E. His contract talk. Now Xavier Woods talking about companies in new areas. So where the TNA Explosion taped it Full Sail. It's Neil Dashwood in there. Dozer. Like Otis, right? Okay, as Otis. Now, to be fair, he did have the long last name in NXT. Was it Otis Dojvic or something like that? Not to confuse with Donovan Dijakovic, who couldn't be left well known as Donovan Dijak because people actually remember that name. Phantasma. quite the rub there for Mad Kurt. It was a losing effort against ELP in the final of the Rev Pro British J Cup, but came right after he beat Zack Sabre Jr. Progress with Flash Morgan Webster. Moose. And as we heard by way of email, Brody King is now fully recovered from his dislocated ankle. Good. Monster Clown back at 100%. Typically, you'll see a news item once about somebody that you might be able to sign, and then if you see them again, it's to let you know they've signed the new deal or whatever it is. Extension or contract elsewhere or whatever. Yes, I seem to always learn a lot about certain unusual medical conditions. Like Churchillian. It's an unusual one. Now, neck nerve damage. I've had enough neck problems in my life to know that's not any fun. And notice that they mentioned Otis before. So I thought Otis thinking of that Ortiz. They showed him a day or two before the top stories, and I guess nobody's able to jump in and try and pry him away as he signed an extension with AEW. So we're on to July of week 3. Lots of process there. Tanahashi beating Naito. Now, this is a case here where you just have to know the game will do certain things its own way, like having in the middle of the G1 a IWGP Heavyweight Championship defense, let alone one that ends with a title change. Imagine WWE running a pay-per-view in Hawaii. Be a cool place as a destination for fans. I think that there'd be something for a company that's going to run a lot of wrestlers in Japan at some point to have a show. You could actually have something like 2 shows around a pay-per-view in Hawaii. Now you're going to pay, it's expensive because it's Hawaii, because you can't just have trucks drive across thousands of miles of the Atlantic Ocean to get the stuff there. Everything costs a bit more. Uh-oh, Minoru Suzuki injured. The man's 52 years old. You're gonna get some bumps and bruises in there. He's also Minoru Suzuki, not just any old early 50s wrestler. This is an unusual computer-made AI-made stable, the Militia. Now, what about this sounds like a militia to you? Finn Balor, Velveteen Dream, Fandango, Tyler Breeze, and Kushida. Now, I know that Fandango and Breeze were the Fashion Police, but that's... distracted. I thought like a helicopter's flying over my house or something. Might have been a plane. I live far enough away from the Nashville airport where I don't have to deal with airplanes flying over all the time. But sometimes it is nice to be fairly close to the airport. Granted, that's out another county over. But anyway, I guess whatever it was flying overhead is headed on to wherever it's going. Booker. So who they, Wiley veterans Gato and Jado, who did they beat? Pongi 3K and Suzuki Goon. Oh, those stupid three-way matches. And I get it, I gave everybody on the card, but I mean, it just gets so overdone in real life that I have very little desire to do it unless there's a very good reason to. If there isn't, that's great. Make it something special. But where it's just lazy booking, thrown together all pell-mell styles. Throw as many wrestlers into a given match as you want. Just first fall wins. Wash, rinse, and repeat. So Dragunov evolving. So how does one go from being an impactful wrestler to a regular wrestler? It was tricky with Hana Kimura, because I wanted to just outright take her out of the game after she passed away. But it just was not going to let me do that. And so I was like, well, what do I do? So finally I went through and I don't think I can pull it from this screen. Let me see. And Stardom is not where you would think it'd be, like starting with S. It's World Wonder Ring Stardom. So I couldn't take her away from Stardom, and I couldn't take her out of the the list of wrestlers in that given company. Point is, I put her as a color commentator working only the India region. In other words, just trying to get where, okay, she's still there. I can't make her disappear from the roster altogether the way this is set up. Or if there is, I just couldn't figure it out. Not quite cooperating the way I wanted to. Let's see. Maybe if I do it this way. I don't want to get too caught up in this, but now I'm curious. That color spelled like the non-American style where it's with a U in there. It's like the band City in Color. City in Color's got a song called Lover Come Back that I absolutely just love. It's a great song, fantastic. Anyway, it has nothing to do with any of this, it just popped in my head. So, because I couldn't take her out without, I even went through like the options part there, just was not going to cooperate with me on that. So, I mean, it's not like I want to just gloss over or forget what happened to that poor girl. She was 22 years old. But because this game, in a lot of ways, is supposed to be not supposed to be, just functions as an escape. Just like any sort of form of entertainment. Forget about whatever troubles or worries you might have for a given amount of time and get drawn into great athletics or outstanding storytelling or both. So there's Austin Theory. It's ongoing until one appearance. So the 1250 because we're just bringing him in. It's the one-off. Put over Leo Rush. In part because it is weird to have somebody that's under contract with the WWE still be able to come in. Even though he should be able to, as a true independent contractor. I mean, which it's either he is or he's an employee that's being illegally classified as an independent contractor, and WWE is just not paying the tax or social security and the like for him. But whatever the case here, I will go ahead and complete. Take these numbers out when I go ahead and actually put the card together. Just for these particular purposes here, I was trying something a little different to see what the numbers. It helps to know. At least it helps me too. I'll put numbers. Or I can just do this and say, okay, 52. Last thing I have to do is figure out who I'll have Zenshi fly, or not fly, maybe he will fly, we'll fight against. Okada got hurt. Broken ribs. Of course, he'll work through the pain. Alright, so Dax Harwood has recovered from his eardrum injury, but I think nevertheless, in fact I know, that I'm just not going to use him here. It makes too much sense to have this work out where I can set up the Clones, Primo and Epico, getting a 2-on-2 win against one half of FTR, the former Revival, and then Fred Yehai, who's associated with that group based on previous matches. Of course, keep in mind this is also card number 6, so it's not like there's some sort of deep ancient history. This all started in June of the game, 2020, so still very fresh into it. Alright, so Okada's hurt, we'll work through it, of course. Now this is going to be interesting. Gary Wooder's the person who designed this Killing the Business mod. He did a great job with it. And by chance, the computer decided to assign Gary as the play-by-play person for Sharp. That's the all-women's child company. Now, obviously, there are men that work there as well, with Gary Woodard as far as the wrestlers. It's strictly women's wrestling. The Velveteen Dream. Now, this also begs the question of what they're going to do with NXT. Now, they're finally doing in this game what in real life they've waited a long time to do. Actually bringing more people up. I mean, she hasn't worked a single match there yet because they haven't had a single show there yet. But apparently, she's ready to be called up nonetheless. So All Japan's going to probably bring some people in for the next tour. They may target some of my guys, and if so, that's fine. So we have all the offers are back in, signed. Now, where you see it says 102/18 split. That's because the program, the event, which I treat as a television show, is a 2-hour event, 120 minutes. There's no consideration for commercials, so you just push that to the side. And the way it's mandated, or the way the setup is as far as when easier for me to just pull it up and try to do it from memory. But the product itself, Elite Wrestling, which is because I emulated Launch, my company that works the child company for AEW. They described it as Wrestling Nerd Nirvana. But this is all the same, I believe. I got rid of the face-heel divide because I think it's so played out. No weight split. But the point bringing this up, because it's not a TV show per se, where it would be more the angles, videos, storylines, etc., compared with the matches. Even more for the matches, 85-15, as far as percentage goes. And you do that percentage on 120 minutes and with 102/18. That has actually worked out pretty well for me as far as a de facto television product goes. It is tonight. Let's see. This is Alicia Fox. Is slated to be called up to developmental. Notice here in the red, last month you managed to break even. That's not true. I was in the hole nearly 200,000. I think 180 plus to the bad. But that'll get covered by the parent company, in this case All Elite Wrestling, and then you start the next month and it's back to even, back to zero. So despite the overwhelming difference between the costs versus the minuscule ticket sales and the whole broadcast revenue versus development, that's just AEW on their end covering it. It's a brand new startup, you're going to have to spend some money. That's just how it is. And I'm glad the game recognizes it as such. to be called up to developmental, or from developmental to the main roster tomorrow. The Ukrainian Culture Center. I don't know that we're expecting that many fans. Maybe not. But coming off a show that we had 28, what, 24, 19, 15, and we started 12. So we've had very steady growth as far as percentages go, but when you start with a dozen fans and that's it for your first show, that can be a rather misleading thing. Some locker room controls. Oh, there's an incident. There we go. Incident involving Jesse Goddard. Oh. I would not guess Jesse Goddard to be a video game tournament guy, but perhaps I misjudged him on that. Stalwart. The absent workers. All the people at Impact are apparently working Impact tonight, which is why I didn't take them into account at all as far as potential for working my show. And now at some point that's going to have to get switched around a bit as far as the head-to-head shows and them with so much talent that I have under my roster, especially the agents, those road agents. All right, now we got a locker room controls, do the meddling thing. Filthy Tom. Unlikely. It's too bad I don't have Kane on here, as in like Kane, Glenn Jacobs. Positive meddling. All right, let's see. I mean, I know Tom's End is a one-off, but let's see if this works. Filthy Tom Lawler and Chris Hero. No effect. You only get one of those per show. Have to set the broadcasters. It's the same ones every time for me, but to click them one at a time. It's part of it. So we're expecting 34. I'll probably use the generic venue. Let's see what it does if I hit pick the best option. Miami Beach. The best option for a show that is expected to have 32 fans is to pick a 10,000 seat capacity arena. Some bad advice. We'll stick with what I got. Thank you very much. The generic venue. Alright, I was trying to just truck through and get this thing completed and the live stream finished up for the night into now the morning. But in this case, it's about a 5-minute break. So hang tight, be right back, and we'll get this put together. You can already see right here I've got it tentatively planned, which means all I have to do now after that is add in the pre-show matches, the promos, / videos, etc., and that's going to take a little bit of time. So about a 5-minute break, and let's keep this going live for now, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I'm back. Let's put this card together, shall we? Now, I've noted this a few times before, but it's very nice how it is now compared with the 2016 version of the game, that you can pick the number of match participants without having to go back a page. It's a very strong improvement. And as ridiculous as it might seem to have Connor from the Ascension challenging for the world title, he's been very effective the way he's been booked. Alicia Fox as his manager has had a breakout performance to the point where she got called back up not too long after they started to return to the main roster. But with Alicia Fox strictly as a manager, not as a wrestler. Stamina, not bad. So I have 108 minutes to fill, and generally I can get 8 matches in. So we'll go with that. Go 21 minutes. I can always trim that down later if need be. Try making it epic. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think just regular. It's Hero. It's going to be a good match. At least you would think so. And I don't think that putting some sort of a special match aim on top of just regular. Yet they were both where I thought I was comfortable from a psychological standpoint, that maybe go the epic, but I think it's playing it smart, playing it safe, have a good match. I'm not going to make them an open match style per se, but ultimately it's my world champion who's unbeaten to remain as such, knocking off a very strong challenger. Form of Connor. So this will be Connor's first loss in AEW. And as always, it'll tell you, I say as always, because it wasn't like this in like 2013, I don't recall, but as it is in 2016, it certainly still is now. You did the book segment, you get the potential title match warning. Yellow triangle saying, are you sure? The title's not on the line. And you can have a non-title match, of course. But in this case, it's not the idea. So, World Championship on the line. Hero defends against Connor. I imagine Connor will say no to the stunt bump, but I will ask. Less than a medium, not going to happen. And that seems to be how it is with most of them. Pretty straightforward, I gotta say. So Gulak and the debuting PJ Black against Cain Velasquez, and the debuting, but only for one show, Filthy Tom Lawler. Gulak, PJ Black, it's Cain Velasquez, and the one and only Filthy Tom Lawler. Excellent stamina for Gulak. Excellent stamina, exceptional stamina really, for PJ Black. Stamina, a bit more of a range, safe to say, for Velasquez. And not bad for Filthy Tom. Possibly as high as a 99, or as low as a 69. So a 30-point range. Quotation marks around Filthy Tom's nickname. Gone back and forth in my head on if it would be Gulak or PJ Black to get the win over Lawler. I'm going to go Gulak. I imagine PJ Black will be very, very good for me as far as being a performer goes, but in this case, I think it makes more sense to give Gulak the win over a team with Cain Velasquez. It was Cain that beat Gulak by referee decision the last time they met. Decisive finish. Gulak over Lawler. Could go with the all-out designation for Lio Rush against Austin Theory. In fact, I probably will. Storytelling. These are stipulations that are required. Right. I mean, I don't have to do them, but they come with a substantial penalty, so thus I do them. And we'll go open match. Matches in, 6 remaining for the main card. We're 41 minutes in. Got hit right at 102. Rush, Austin Theory. On the last show, Lio Rush actually went to a time limit draw, the 10-minute time limit, the CMLL Lightning match style. That's part of what differentiates the Sprint Championship versus, say, the World title. So a draw counts as a successful title defense for the champion, but this is the first time that Rush wasn't able to outright win. Close to the time limit, we'll have Lio Rush retain. Decisive win. what I'm going to do, because exhaustion's setting in for me at this point. I was watching the unrest in Minneapolis. The news producer in me will never truly die. So I always find such things interesting, if not horrifying. That caused me a lot slower to get started on this than I anticipated, so it'll make sense to get the skeleton in there if nothing else, and then I can go through and figure out the referees and agents for the next live stream. It'll probably be soon, as far as like tonight, Nashville time. Although I can't say that with 100%. I say 100% since I don't know. I haven't decided for sure yet how my weekend's going to play out. Although I've also found that plans can change. All right. Tag match. So we're building up the clones, Primo and Epico, to challenge for the Launch Wrestling World Tag Team Championship. Cash Wheeler, one half of the World Tag Team Champs in Launch Wrestling, along with Dax Harwood, FTR, the team that was once known as the Revival in WWE. Fred Yehai, who has had some experience in six-man tags with FTR. In this case, in a 2-on-2 match with Dax Harwood. They say he's past his eardrum injury from past Tuesday's show, but nevertheless, I decided to go with this. I think it'll be for the best. Yehai, you're talking about. It looks bad with the 19s, but at least 27. And since we're in the U.S. Southeast, that's a good spot to have them. So Primo will go over. Fred Yehai dropping the loss, so it won't be either member of Revival actually having a loss, even in a situation like this. So to that end, it does provide some sort of a protection. Open, well, yeah, we'll say open match style, that's fine. Actually, I'm about to fall asleep. It's way later than I intended on staying up, so rest of the card, I'll have it set to go before the next live stream. Big Cass and Christian Casanova against Danhausen and Cody Hall. Hawkins and Ryder against Jimmy Lloyd and Josh Briggs. A promo from PB Smooth towards Shannon Moore. That'll be after Shannon Moore's match with Simon Grimm, and they'll have to find somebody to take on Zenshi. Then to add the promos, videos, etc. Then add at least one or two, probably more. Not too many, but as far as pre-show matches go, got some options. Although with Impact running, it does create problems as well as far as availability. I sure would like to have, but at this point I don't. So that's it for this feed. I know I'm stopping it midway through, but cliffhanger. It's like an episode of Card Sharks from the 70s where it's running out of time for the episode. We'll pick it back up at the start of the next one. So that's how it. But you see the top, top 4 matches here. Hero becomes that much stronger for being an undefeated challenger. PJ Black looks strong in his debut. Filthy Tom, as a one-off, comes in. Also a dream team of sorts, him and Cain Velasquez, but then Lawler's only staying for the one show. It'll be, I guess, Black have got beaten Filthy. Or it was Gulak, one or the other. Leo Rush against Austin Theory should be very good. And the Clones against Cash Wheeler and Fred Yehi should be interesting. And on from there, as has been discussed. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. This is Lou Pickney Plays Total Extreme Wrestling 2020. Catch you next time. Thanks for watching.